All right, so I'm here in the, what do we call this, the Technology Center at Rytec?
Technology Center.
If you haven't seen the tour where we go through this amazing smart factory and we toured the two different facilities, make sure to go check out that video. But I'm here with Dan. Dan, what's your title?
I am Vice President of Product Development and Engineering.
Okay, so he's going to dig into the details with us. So that's what I'm most excited about being here at Rytec. I want to see, I love the darn fabric doors too. I don't know where I'd put them in my life, but some way I'm going to figure out how to put them somewhere in some business someday. But I wanted to go into the nitty-gritty of some of the details of the different types of doors. The thing I'm not very aware of are the non-super fancy, non-expensive doors. There's the, what do you call them, LV? There's some doors that aren't high speed that are more traditional.
Sure.
I'd like to pick your brain on that a little bit here today, but we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the doors that I'm getting, on how it works, why it works, and all the tech that goes into it. So let's get started. There's different versions of spiral, right? There's spiral, low headroom. Just give me a little education on spiral, what options are available.
Right, so the spiral family began with the model of door that has the conventional, what we call round head or spiraling design, whereas our door curtain rolls up, it rolls up in a spiral effect.
It doesn't touch itself, right?
It doesn't touch itself. It never comes in contact with any other part of itself other than the rollers touching the track. And from that beginning design, we expanded on it for other applications. So, for instance, you may have what we call our low headroom, or you have applications that need our low headroom version. And what that is a situation where the amount of available space above the door opening is limited, and we can put a door that runs at the same speed as this door in an opening that has if it has at least 11 inches of available space above it, we can put this door in that space.
I could put that in my house, technically?
Correct,
maybe?
yeah. So we do have a few residential customers that have
I want to
put
become
it in.
one of those someday.
Right. There's a number of people that.
I don't think an HOA is going to allow that because of the industrial look of the door, but if you had like your own property or something like that.
Correct, yeah. The door finds itself in a lot of condominiums and multi-use facilities.
Yeah.
So where they have residents and businesses or commercial.
Got it.
And then some high-end garages and things like that for sure.
So I remember seeing there's spiral SV, there's like just different versions of the door.
So as we get beyond the conventional head type, so you have the spiral head, and then you have the low headroom, which moves more like a conventional garage door, but at our high speed. And then when you get beyond that, there's several different versions of panel material.
Okay.
So in this particular case, this door would be classified as an FV, so full vision.
Full V. Okay, got it.
So it has all of the, each of its individual slats have vision through them.
And it's Lexan, not glass, right?
Correct. We used Lexan with Marguard. It's a scratch resistance. It also can clean up easier if it were to be vandalized with graffiti and what have you. We offer it in standard clear, which is what this version is, and then a bronze tint.
Okay.
And a gray tint.
Okay.
And frankly, the tints aren't super exaggerated. They're not like, limo tint. They're just there to kind of give consistency to a building design that may have tinted windows through
Understood.
it. And then the other option of panel assembly is solid.
Sure.
So like you see on the very bottom slat, that solid panel continues up with each section. We can integrate a number of windows in. So for instance, if you said, okay, I need solid up to about 5 feet or 4 feet, and then a couple of windows and then solid again, we can arrange that pretty much to the user's specification.
And what if something like this, I see we have access if they damaged or scratched a piece of glass, you could, or Lexan plastic, you could replace?
Correct. Yeah, so one of the proprietary patented designs that we have is relative to this hinge chain and the ability to change out a single panel individually without having to take the entire panel assembly out. So it does make service quite a bit easier. The reliability of the continuous hinge chain was also, an interesting development for us as this product grew through.
So even if I had a solid door and let's say somebody smacked 3 panels, I could take those 3 panels, replace them.
Correct. If it were to become scratched, or let me just get this out of the way here. If it were to become scratched or somebody were to bump into it, we get videos every now and then where people drive through.
Oh, okay.
It happens. And then those panels that are damaged can be replaced individually.
So do all the spiral versions, the low headroom, do they go at the same speed? Is the speed adjustable? What's the technical? Is it 60 inches a second? What do you classify the speed as?
So from the perspective of the individual doors, the FV doors are a little bit lighter than our solid doors, so those doors are capable of higher speeds.
Okay.
We generally say that door will run at about 80 inches a second.
Okay.
It has an up to speed that's a little bit higher, because the 80 inches a second, when we drive this door and we move it, we actually go through what we call a speed profile, where it goes through an acceleration curve.
Okay, yeah.
And then it gets to maximum speed, and then before it gets to the end position, it starts slowing down and stepping down.
No matter what, on a short time scale, right?
Correct.
So
Everything is, the algorithm says you have so much distance or time to try and slow down, and it maximizes that so that it spends as much time at high speed.
So your curve looks like this, and then as it gets to the end, it has to slow down a little bit.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So we actually bring the door to a stop without using any brakes. There's no friction involved in stopping the door. It's all done through the inverter drive system.
Oh, wow, wow. So it drives it and then just cuts power, basically. Or ramps down power.
Yeah, so our System 4 controller actually has what's called, there's a couple of different layman terms. There's an inverter, an AC drive, or a variable frequency drive. It's very similar to what you would use in an electric car, right?
Okay.
It's like the harder you push the gas, the more it pours the coals to the motor. So we have that capability, and when you drive a door to accelerate it, it's under load. And when you go to slow a door down or stop it, it actually turns the motor into a generator.
Okay.
And then that generated power comes back to the controller and gets burned off like a toaster.
Yeah.
We just burn it off. And in that sense, then we're controlling the door movement by saying, okay, slow down. And then we only use our brake as a parking brake. So all it does is hold the door once it stops. So there's no wear, no adjustment to it. And then again, our positioning system dictates, it's an ingredient in dictating how the door moves up and down and how it comes to a stop, accelerates and decelerates based on feedback information from the
So then the one thing I didn't understand, the Wi-Fi system, is that giving us is that redundant to the light system? You explained to me how that works with the...
Yeah, so in the past, the standard was for devices on the door was the leading edge of the door had a sensing edge. So if I'll just bring the door up to position so you can see it. So this edge on the door is actually can be configured to be a sensing edge. So if the door were to come down on something and hit it, it would trigger electronically and send its signal through the YY system, the YY system.
So now it's a redundant system?
No, it's an option for applications that can't have all the new smart surround system in the door light curtain. So for instance, if you were in a maintenance garage, like an actual garage, it's a working garage. In some cases, the garages have a restriction where you can't have any electronics or electrical equipment below 18 inches because of the settling of gas fumes. And in those cases, you would either need to have explosion-proof devices, or you'd have to have no devices below 18 inches. And obviously, with these light curtains, they all extend below that 18 inches. This would extend below it because it's able to be configured to be intrinsically safe, in other words, not an explosion-proof hazard. That's where we would kind of go back to it. So the reversing edge was technology from 3-4 years ago. When we introduced Smart Surround, it became beyond redundant. We, for about the 5 years prior to Smart Surround, we had a light curtain in the door line and the reversing edge. And that was our kind of primary and secondary safety devices when it comes to the door travel.
So this senses pressure, which then tells the door to go back up.
Correct.
Okay, that's what when you say reversing edge, it's sensing it down here, sending this to the box.
Right, to
and,
the back to the box.
And the box controls the motor, and then says, all right, it just hit someone and it touched something, and so go back up.
Correct.
And so technically speaking, with the light bar, that's not necessary.
Right. So when we introduced the Smart Surround system, we're up to 3 different devices, and it didn't make sense to hold on to all of them.
Okay.
This being the seal is a wear item.
Sure.
So when it's classified as a safety device and a wear item, of course it's going to wear. So one of the things that we were able to leverage is the fact that there's less cost of ownership involved with the new system as well.
Gotcha.
Because you won't be servicing the seal.
So my door won't have this, it'll have this.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you've ordered a standard current spiral model of high speed, you'll get the Smart Surround system as standard.
So explain to me, the light bar is your baby, isn't it?
Correct. The lights, the Smart Surround system is, it was something I came up with relatively deliriously on a flight back from Europe.
Okay.
It took us about 5 years to get the patent. Well, it took us about 5 years to develop it, and in that time we were actually able to come to market with an actual patented product rather
So
than
how
just
is it
patented.
compared to the residential garage door with the little the 2 eyes that connect?
Right. So in general, basically the same principle to a certain degree in a simplest form is the same. In each light curtain strip, we have a number of sensors similar to what you have on your garage door, that simple single photo eye.
Yep.
Each sensor is either an emitter or a receiver.
Okay.
So, for instance, that sensor will send signals across 16 different photo eye emitters, and this sensor will receive those individual signals.
Even with it, like right now it's lit up, that's not the photo eye, or that's not the sensor, right?
Yeah.
So I cross, right now it's sensing even with light we can't see, right?
Right. It's not a visible light.
Right.
It is infrared, but it's not the visible type of infrared
Gotcha.
light.
So it's emitting infrared as we speak.
Correct.
And then as soon as I do this, then it says it's sending a signal. Hey, something just broke the plane. Go back up.
Correct. If any of the beams are obstructed, the system is capable of being configured to give you signaling and door reaction, a combination of the two. So, in this case, this door is generally, so I should say, this room being our technology center is where we do a lot of our testing. We, when we're trying new software or new features,
That's where you're trying to break stuff.
we're doing it here. Right.
Right.
We try to break stuff here.
Gotcha.
So it's confined to here and not into production and not on your door.
Right.
So in some cases, I tell customers how something's going to work, and it doesn't work exactly like that
We can cut that part out.
because the software is special software.
You're
just for the
playing with
test.
stuff in here.
Correct.
Yeah, got it.
But in general, what's occurring here and what's really innovative about it is not only are we combining the sensing of the individual beams, we're combining the signaling lights in the same housing. That was one part of the intellectual property that was a challenge and important because the space that it takes up, the aesthetics that it provides. If you could imagine having not only these sensor strips, but then you need another sensor or another strip for lights,
Yep.
you'd have a lot of things hanging on your building that you may not want.
So you wanted it in the same enclosure.
Correct. We wanted to streamline it, make it as compact as possible, and have the devices integrated into each other so that we didn't have too many devices.
So is the two light curtains, are they redundant then?
So this one is really, the Smart Surround system, it takes things a step further.
Okay.
The light curtain in the door line, what makes it intelligent, its ability to track through software to say that when a beam is blocked, that it knows it's the door.
Okay.
So as it blocks each individual beam, it's looking at the encoder positioning system to say, hey, where is the door? okay, that's why the beam's being blocked.
Okay.
So that's what's intelligent about that part, and that's our last line of defense, if you will.
Understood. Got it.
Smart Surround was a supplement to that, so that we could know more about how the door is, the traffic is using the door, and recognize different traffic patterns and things that might not, that should maybe result in the door doing something differently. So I'll give you, for instance, we'll let this door close. If a door is called upon to open, so in many cases these doors are activated automatically.
Right.
So if let's say it's a service write-up area at a car dealership, right? Somebody drives up, they want the door to open so that they can drive in.
Yep.
In the case of a situation where a customer drives up, right, they trigger the door detector, the door opens, but because the service bay is full, or the write-up area is full, they sit. So now the door opens, as it does in this case, right? But the system is capable of recognizing that the traffic hasn't passed through. So it says to itself, okay, well, maybe I should do something different because they could still be in the area. Right. So what it does is it reverts to a slower closing speed, and then the door closes at about half of its normal speed. If they are in the area, it gives them the opportunity to walk through the opening if they need to, even though generally most dealerships have pedestrian doors adjacent to our doors as well.
Help with air conditioning control, stuff like
Correct.
that. Or if somebody mistakenly opened the door, forgot to close it, eventually it'll...
Correct. One of the biggest value props that people find in these doors is the speed, and it's not just for the coolness factor, although it's pretty cool how fast they go. It is temperature control, environment control. Sure. A lot of the car dealerships now, especially the service technicians themselves, don't want to work in hot environments or cold environments. They want, they want to be comfortable when they're working, and they know that if they go down to the dealership down the road and it's air conditioned, that's an attraction for them.
Well, and the owner of the business also, there's probably a calculation, like how much more effort, how much more energy can I get, output can I get from my organization by having people comfortable.
Absolutely. So a number of independent organizations, including our representative Manufacturers Association, has determined that that number falls right around 70 cycles per day. So you could have the most heavily insulated door that you can get on your opening. If it's a conventional sectional door that only moves at 8 inches a second, it will let so much air in and out that all we need is 70 cycles, and it doesn't matter what our R value is because we're going open and close so fast, we're minimizing that air exchange. So that's one of the real obvious value props that most of our customers are looking for. In the case of like a parking application where you have busy times where cars are constantly going in or going out, and you don't want that opportunity to tailgate where one car will just follow another into an area they shouldn't be. That's another reason for the speed of the door being an advantage. And then lastly is it's not just speed, but it's reliability. We talked about it early on about having the door doesn't come in contact with itself. We use all sealed bearing rollers, and the shafts and the hinge assemblies are meant for millions of cycles. It's not uncommon for me to get a photo from one of our salespeople of our display that shows, like this door right now says it's got 288 cycles on it. I'll get pictures of doors that'll have millions. The most I've seen is 9.2 million, but it was one of the fabric doors. I think the highest I've seen on a spiral is 3.5 million.
Wow.
That doesn't mean it didn't need any service, but it means that door, that initial cost of ownership has spread itself out over those 3 million cycles. It could be 10 years, it could be 15 years, it could be 5 years. If you were to say to me, Dan, like, I got this application, this thing's going to go up and down a ton, and you were to say, I'm going to need it to do 400 cycles a day, maybe even 500, I wouldn't blink an eye. And that's not really sales speak, that's product guy speak. I know that this door is capable of at least 150 cycles without any rest, continuously. And then it can go easily into the 400 and 500 cycles per day with proper maintenance and some service parts coming into play along the way.
So we have the track, right? The track continues up through the spiral. The door doesn't touch itself, right? You talked about how it speeds up and slows down. There's no brake. Is there anything in this box, or is this just is this just there for aesthetics? I mean, why such a big box that sticks out? Because the door is only this thick. Now, what's in here? What's the purpose?
Yeah, so depending on the size of the door, these are our side columns. They serve two purposes. One of which is to carry the weight of the head assembly down to the floor,
okay,
so that we're not 100% relying on the wall,
okay,
for all of the load that the door can present. But there's also, this door is spring balanced, if you will. So it uses extension springs to help get that door open for speed. It also allows it to be manually opened. Try that. There we go. With relative ease.
So the springs are the counterweight to take some of the weight off the door.
Correct.
Or the weight off the system.
Yeah, depending on how much tension is provided initially,
yeah,
in most cases the door will generally open.
So that spring assembly is in this column?
Correct. There's a what we call a spring pack. Okay. Generally it's at least 2. It can be depending on the size of the door. If you had a very large door, and especially a short large door, there can be as many as 6 in each column, so you could have a total of 12. But that's a door that's probably more like 24 feet wide.
So we have the springs that act as a counterweight to the door, right? That help with the electric, so that all the weight isn't on the motor.
Correct.
And also so that you could actually lift the door if you needed to.
Right, in a power outage.
And then there's the electric motor right there, right? Is there only one on one side?
Yes.
So
yes,
all the drivetrain is on one side?
Correct.
A really wide door, would it have 2? Or is there all...
No, we've toyed around with the idea of 2 motors, but in general it's not necessary, because the spring pack will really kind of allow us to stay within that 3 horsepower range that we like to be in, okay, with our controls. This particular motor is 2 horsepower, okay, so you can imagine as we get to a really big door,
you just increase the motor,
increase the motor by another horsepower, and it's capable of very similar speeds. You also have things like wind resistance and other factors like temperature being cold, that some of the horsepower is applied to cover those things. If you have wind against this door, it will have some resistance. If you have cold, it'll be a little bit stiffer.
Yeah.
So we don't run our motors right up to their limit. The springs help us make sure that we have plenty of overhead.
Me as a customer, do I get to pick how many horsepower I get, or is it just dependent on the...
It's based on the size and the application. Generally, the product model itself dictates what size motor it is. You had mentioned one of our other models, the VP. It's a spiral VP. VP stands for value and performance.
Okay.
It's basically a slower version, simpler version of this product, for the primary benefit of consistency of aesthetics throughout a building. So if you weren't going in 150 times a day, and that benefit of energy exchange, what wasn't important in a particular area, you could put a VP in, and then your building would still have that consistency from one door to the next. A lot of our car dealer customers, and the architects who design the buildings are very concerned about that, which led us to develop that product.
So then this system, there's only this control. There's no big box like there is in the other. The box is up in there?
Yeah, so we offer an option on spiral doors called pre-wire package. It's our premium pre-wire package. We saw it out in the factory. Yeah, so everything in a normal sense, all of the electronics and the electrical wiring within the door itself is all done at the factory. And we tuck the main control panel in the column head that doesn't have the motor, so it's just on the opposite side. Okay. So we had some real estate up there, and we found that really, honestly, nobody can do the wiring better than us. Nobody can do it cleaner, because we have all the provisions to keep it within the confines of the door. So again, aesthetics being very important. If you've been in some of these high-end car dealerships and the floors are tiled and the walls are super, clean and cool, they don't want a bunch of electrical stuff and conduit on the walls. So premium pre-wire was developed for that purpose. It's charged for option. Generally, it minimizes or at least reduces the cost of installation because the electrical is less involved. And then we also throw an extra 1 year of electrical warranty on it just to kind of prove that, hey, no one can do it better than us.
Yeah.
It benefits our product because nothing speaks better about a product than the initial satisfaction of everything working properly right out of the box. And the pre-wire package helps with that. So again, it allows us to minimize, you see some of these other control boxes around here, all of those connections that run to it helps minimize the amount of field work that's necessary.
Then is it like a Cat 6 wire that runs from that to the brain?
Correct. So this is on a this is actually on a CAN bus system. So
it's a Molex type.
Correct.
CAN.
Yeah, we have a small either M12, depending on the number of devices that are involved, M8s or M12 connectors. So when we introduce smarts around that, because of the amount of information that's being transferred between the sensors and the controller, we went with a CAN bus system so that we could process that information more quickly. And then the multiple devices also said, we were able to say, the CAN bus makes the consistency of all of that work well together. So this device is called the BTA4.
Okay.
And basically what it stands for is it's Bluetooth capable. So we're developing an app for your phone where you can tap into it and you can see the Bluetooth symbol, and you can do some troubleshooting with it. You can do quite a bit of troubleshooting with it, but you can also get door details, data about the door. You can dump it. It's a near field situation. It's as far as Bluetooth will transfer. So as far as using it to operate the door, it's not for remote. It doesn't jump onto the internet. It's not like your home garage where maybe if you have some of the
a LiftMaster
where they have the MyQ or what have you. It's not like that. With the speeds that these doors operate at, and generally being a commercial environment, unattended door operations is generally not something you need.
I always punt that Wi-Fi anyway on my doors at my house because I don't
First thing that goes, right?
Yeah. I just punt. We don't even hook it up. For some reason, LiftMaster puts it in the light. I don't want the light. The light's the wrong color, temperature, and everything. So I just punt it, and then I don't need a control from my phone. So this will be on my wall, communicates to the brain upstairs.
Correct.
That's basically the door, right? I mean, that's the...
In general, yes. We talked about the encoder, which is it keeps track of the door's position throughout its movements, whether it's powered or not. So if we were to lose power on this door and move it, when you get the power back on, the door already knows where it is. It doesn't have to go through any kind of synchronization or anything like that.
And there's no engage or re-engage, because this spring-loaded device, once you let this go, or once you put this back into position, it's re-engaged, waiting for power to come back, essentially.
Correct. There's a sensor on the release that says that brake is being released, and it won't let the door run under power until that.
It's like, your home garage, you pull the red cord, and then you got to try to get the cord to go to
right.
reconnect.
And sometimes you don't know if it's in or not, and you won't find out until you're locked out of your house. Been there, done that.
Right.
So in this particular case, it'll give you what we call emergency stop. It'll say that the door's not capable of operating until that leveler's pushed back into place. I'm trying to think of what other features. So we do offer it with, instead of the plexiglass, we also offer it in ventilated. So if you had some application where, it was, let's say it was a bigger parking garage where there's cars idling, or a dyno cell or something like that, you can get some airflow through the door.
I saw some of those in production somewhere. Some of the slats. Pretty neat
that's primarily for parking garages,
Sure,
bigger ones, because they'll park 200 or 300 cars in there, and they don't have enough room on the building for all the ventilation.
So let's talk about maintenance.
Sure.
You used a really great phrase when you buy one of these doors, taking ownership of it, right? So I plan to take ownership of it because I'm like a Rytec super fan, right? So I want to know everything about it. When I get it, I'm going to watch him install it. I'm going to be picking Jeremy's brain while he's installing the darn thing. I'm going to know all about it. I want to know how to adjust it. I want to know how to play with it. I want to know how to play with it's probably not a good word, but I want to know how it works. So that way I can, if I want to make adjustments, I can. So is it all done through the controller? Do I have to have some special software as an owner? as a user, how do I, if I wanted to change how it operates,
Right.
can I do that, or do I need to have service involved?
So all of our doors ship with our entire suite of software built into every controller, whether you ask for it or not.
Okay.
So all of the doors' capabilities in software is not one-off. We've developed it over the course of 30 years of being in this business and included it in every controller because we don't expect you as a new high-speed door purchaser and user to know everything you want your door to do right out of the gate. In some cases, it's really simple. Fork truck drives up to the door and it drives through. Right? It's pretty straight away. But there's a lot of specialty applications that we find ourselves in where things like an airlock, like if you said, I don't want two doors open at the same time because it creates a wind tunnel for me to deal with. So we could tie the two doors together to say, okay, this one won't open until that one returns to the closed position, then it can open, and way more involved even than that.
But if I change my mind on that airlock,
Right.
I could go, I don't need to call a service tech,
You could do it yourself.
if I read the instructions, I
Right.
took ownership of it.
So I'll give you an example. Right now this door is set. Once it opens and there's no obstructions in the field of all of the sensors, it was set for 10 seconds before it would automatically close. And then once it gets to 0, it goes through 3 seconds of what we call pre-warning, and then the door will close. Okay? If you said, well, geez, 10 seconds seems like a really long time for a fast door, can I get that to close more quickly? So it's published in the manual, but it's also something that we can walk you through on the phone. If you know the access codes for getting into the software, which is pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's, oh, sorry about that, I didn't mean to jump out. The ACL timer is the auto close timer. I'm sorry, I'm using
So
industry
these
terms.
codes will be in the manual, and it'll explain what that does.
Correct. So right here is the auto close time, and there's 3 of them actually. You could get into.
Can I have it go down 80 inches a second?
No,
Okay.
no. Well, the government can, but you can't.
Okay.
So in order to change this, basically what I did was I moved the cursor from this is what we call the parameter. The parameter is, in this particular case for that timer, is 010. I move it over to the value. I use the arrows to adjust it. I'm going to set it to 5 seconds. I'm going to save it till the check mark shows up, and then I'm going to exit. And the next time I open the door, it will only count down for 5 seconds rather than 10. You can see it started at 5, and it'll get down to the pre-warning, and then the door will close. So relative to your question about speed, so because of the wide range of applications these doors find themselves in, our software has what we call, you can actually get to the parameter that adjusts the speed.
Okay.
But your ability to change it is limited by what we call factory levels, where only the factory has authorization to go in there. And what it says is, it's like, you want the door to go a little faster opening, great. Right? We let you do that within a certain amount of what we feel is safe and maintains the door's reliability.
So of course, everyone's going to go peg it high.
Right.
It's like turn the bass and treble all the way up.
Exactly. If you wanted to slow it down, the opening speed, there's a lot more space available to do that. And conversely, with closing, we allow a lot more space to slow it down closing, but not very much at all to increase the closing speed. And the reason for that is because some of it is mechanical and electrical capabilities of the door, but in general, the customers, like you said, will just want to go to the fastest speed, and that's not necessarily the best thing.
Right.
So one of the reasons we're able to provide so much software capability is because we've actually segregated various adjustments so that we can say you can control certain aspects and give you 2 different levels of accessibility to control things. But then beyond that, there are what we call Rytec levels. That's where you need to call in, tell us what you want to do, and we tell you, A, is it practical, and B, okay, we need some information. At the point where you're trying to get into a Rytec level, we're going to ask you to go to a particular parameter and push the button, and it's going to pop up a value. That value is going to be something that we put in an algorithm here that generates a code that we tell you, okay, enter this value in that parameter.
Because this is a closed system, right? This isn't connected to the internet. It's not tapped into our network.
Not at this point. It's in our future, but not just yet.
Okay.
So what that does is that gives you access to the parameters that we may want you to go to. They're unmarked. You won't know what you're doing. It's like literally like, okay, I'm going to go to 690. You're going to be like, I don't know what that is. Doesn't matter. We knew. And then we're going to allow you to change it within a certain range. And then as soon as you're really done, then if you don't use the door for 30 minutes, it'll boot you out of that level, so you won't have this constant access to it. So it's kind of like a.
So I can see how, you know, I'm owner of the dealer. I don't even know. I just wrote the check. I don't know anything about the door. I don't have anything to do with it. It's just, yeah, it looks pretty. My general manager told me we should get it, so I bought it. So I don't know anything about it. The GM's busy running the showroom, is, you know, hiring, firing, everything. So he never took ownership of it.
Right.
And then it's usually it's the guy who's in charge of moving oil in and out, you know, through the truck, is now in charge of the $100,000 door.
Could be, yeah.
Right.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Right. And so now he starts monkeying around, and he's in charge of fixing the darn thing. And so I could see how you could end up in a situation where a dealership always has techs out servicing the door all the darn time, because every little thing, there's no one who's really taken ownership of the door, where they understand it, they understand how it works.
Yeah, generally what we find a lot is either through change of the people that work at the facility, or just change of experience, that they want the door to do different things than it was originally set for. A guy like Jeremy, who does a lot of installations, will tell you the number of times he has to come back to make adjustments that are really, in reality, they're just user desired features, especially as it relates to the activation and the timing. Yeah, not too many people want to go through and read the manual and figure out what to do. And even take it a step further, we in our tech support department will assist anyone, any customer, to the point where we feel like we're still safe in directing them in what they're doing, right? We're not going to tell you to, okay, just start peeling parts out of the control box, or, you know, that kind of thing. But when it comes to, okay, can you tell me what parameter is in this location? Here's how you get there. We'll step you through it. We do it all the time.
So then it sounds to me, I'm just kind of doing the math on the side here, if I got 120,000 cycles, if I'm using it on average twice a day, I'll probably never have to touch the springs.
It's going to be a long time.
Right.
It's going to be a long time.
Because some days it's not going to move. It's just going to sit there. And
Correct.
Other days I'm going to do it 10 times, but I'm going to average 365 cycles a year. And actually, we'll probably end up doing it because we'll be, hey, check this out. You know, we'll be showing people more than we'll actually be using it.
There's definitely a lot of cycles that are put on initially, and then it slows down after the newness wears off.
So I plan on every single video I ever make, let's do our Rytec door operation. Yeah. It should be our opening of every video.
Absolutely, and that's what we think is the values.
Maintenance would be springs after 100,000-ish cycles.
150, yeah.
What about other maintenance items?
So there's no lubrication.
Or anything?
Yeah, there's no lubrication. We actually, you know, most of our manuals all say, you know, don't lubricate the door. It's not necessary. Yeah. You know, from time to time you can. There are some belts in the side columns themselves that drive the door. That's what's used to actually physically lift it.
Yep.
In some environments, they can get a film on them, or they can get, you know, moist, if you will. And at times they can make a squeaking noise. Yeah. And most of the time, that would be about the only thing that you would need to address there. And generally, if it isn't there, it doesn't develop over time. It's primarily either there or it's not, and then it can be addressed pretty quickly.
Got it.
We have a number of recommendations, you know, belt dressings and things like that, that'll take care of that. As far as the seals are concerned, you know, that would be a wear item. You know, over the course of time, again, it's going to take quite a while
I saw brushes in the factory. Are those only for the fabric doors?
Yeah, primarily it's for these our breakaway style doors, doors that can be impacted, and also that doors that have a varying degree of width throughout their panel assembly.
Gotcha.
So we need the brush to be able to forgive the wide spots, but still make contact with the narrow spots.
So can you just show us how some of these other doors work too, and just tell us a little bit about them? I know that doesn't really fit what we're going to do in the garage, but I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get these fabric doors in my life somewhere.
Right.
You know?
So in general, all of the fabric doors that we make have the capability of being what we call broken away. So at the onset of Rytec, and when we became, kind of the leader in this industry some 30-something years ago, it was pretty common that one of the biggest complaints for people who use doors or needed doors, especially in logistics and commercial facilities, was when they get hit, they're toast. They're done, right? I mean, just think if you hit your garage door at home, it's a pretty good chance it isn't going to close, and you're also going to be stuck there for who knows how long with that door being wide open. In the case of our fabric line, almost all of the doors generally have the capability of being impacted, and they can be pushed out of the guide and still and not result in damage, and not have them necessarily need tools or anything to fix them. I'll give you an example. Impatient door guy. So I could knock it all the way out of the guide, and it'll go up, and in this particular case, it'll reset itself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This door is primarily for cold storage facilities.
Yeah.
So it will, in those cases, if a fork truck were to hit it, and of course nobody wants to take credit for hitting the door.
Right, yeah.
This door is designed to actually self-repair without any real intervention from a person.
By those little flip brackets up top there.
Correct.
It goes
Yeah.
out past the track, resets, and then
Right.
yeah.
And if you hit it from this direction, it just slides up along these guides and finds its way back in the guide.
Spirals are 26. Is that the
Spirals can go as wide as 24 foot 6 and as tall as 22. But there's a combination restriction to that. You can't have a 20.
And then your box, the height was, I think he said I needed 42 inches or something. What was it?
Depends on the size of the door. So a smaller door, that we refer to as an L door,
Yeah.
which is our smallest version of round head spiral. I believe the headroom requirement's right around 28 inches, 29 inches, and then it goes up based on the size of the door, especially the height. Because as you try to store all of those slats that make up the height of the door, we need a little bit more room in the box.
Yeah. And then
and in the case of a low headroom, it doesn't really change because all of the storage of the slats is just
is
horizontally.
the cool barn door thingy? Is that, what do you call that door? The barn door looking?
Oh yeah, this is our turbo slide.
Turbo slide.
Again,
yeah.
this is primarily cold storage applications.
I'm going to figure out some sort of Matt Mormon application for this, because I think this is the coolest thing ever.
It's just a really big, it's like you'd see it going into a grocery store, or a department store.
I gotta figure out where I'm going to put one of these in my life someday.
Yeah, we can make this door with a panel up to 10 inches thick.
I saw some of them out there.
Yeah, and
I love the rhino lining on the X. This is cool.
Yeah, it's.
I'm thinking like, in what we do a lot of car barns or garages is you'd have a separate area, right? And so you'd have a internally inside the building, you'd have like a wash bay area, and you would put a roll-up door to separate. I'd rather have a barn door there like this.
Right.
So something like that could be really cool.
Yeah, it's and it's super reliable. It's fairly simple. It's chain driven. It's not as quiet as some of our other products that are belt driven. But this particular customer base for us, the cold storage customer is either replacing an existing door that can't be impacted. This door can take a pretty substantial bump, or can be broken away, if you will, compared to, say, if this was a rigid, made from steel door, just like You
and
see.
then it has those. That's what keeps it in track. So instead of having a track, you'd have
Yeah, those rollers are really their primary responsibility. Is when the door closes, you'll see them connect with a ramp, and what that does is that just pushes the door. It just pushes the door tight against the seal.
Yeah.
So
you position those accordingly. Yeah.
Right, we get our three-sided seal plus what's on the floor.
I see.
The door also drops as it comes to the center, so the floor seals don't wear the entire time it's going back and forth. They start to lift as it goes
Interesting.
at an angle. This is one of the two doors that really kind of started Rytec. We used to make an accordion-style folding door. That was the original door that started Rytec.
Yeah.
And then this was the second door. We call it the fast seal. So this door has the capability of being built all the way up to, we've built doors as wide as 36 feet.
Yeah.
And we built them as tall as 26 feet. But
So
again,
these are for delineating, conditioned and non-conditioned space, or one side of the warehouse or the other, or something.
correct.
Like
They're
that.
generally industry, fabrication, production areas like the automotive manufacturers would use them. Train docks where they're unloading train, grain elevators. We have a large population of these in transit authorities throughout the country, whether it be, up in Canada, in Chicago, in New York.
Yeah.
Where you got to get the buses in to fuel them and clean them. And you're like, well, what do you need such a special door for? Well, in a place like New York, where you have no ability to turn a bus into a facility and you're coming right off a curbside or sidewalk,
Get the door
they
open.
need a really wide berth and they need that door open and closed quickly.
Yeah.
So the bus comes along that curb line and this has to kind of swing in.
Yeah.
So a 14 or an 18-foot wide door isn't
gonna get
enough.
it,
You
yeah.
needed 30-something, and
Yeah.
we were able to provide them quite a few of those for that type of application. This door is our probably our most recently released door. It's called the FlexTech. It is our design of a soft edge door. So what you'll notice is that it doesn't have the bottom edge on it like the rest of the doors. It instead relies on it's primarily in most cases for pedestrian traffic, so it has a really soft edge, right? And in order to just break it away, you basically just pull it out of the guide.
Oh yeah, we saw them manufacturing this piece.
Yeah,
here.
that drive teeth assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then when a door like this is broken away or comes in contact, which is very difficult because we also use light curtains on it so that it doesn't get impacted, the door is, again, capable of, that's the light curtain stopping it from moving. It's really hard to get it out of the guide. So it'll just literally pull out of the guide. And the other thing that it does really well is it also has very good wind resistance because
And a door like this that's not a spiral, not super high speed, is more economical.
it's a little more economical. Again, it depends on the traffic type. Like I said, it's got really good wind resistance.
Yeah.
And in its normal speed, this has got test software in it as well.
Yeah. We're not holding it against you.
No,
We get it.
I'll let it reset, but it goes as fast as.
Oh, okay.
It's probably around 60 inches a second.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of hard to really see it on a door that's only this tall.
Yeah,
Like
all
we
right.
can make this door over 20 foot tall,
Yeah.
and you really get the sense of the speed when it's a
Right.
20-foot tall door.
These doors have springs too, the fabric door?
This one has a small counterweight. Most of these are just direct drive doors.
Yeah.
So it just depends. The big fast seals, actually all fast seals have counterweights as well. So instead of a spring, we use a counterweight on a strap. It's not so much that that there's a lot less maintenance because you still have the strap maintenance on a counterweighted door, but it allows us more flexibility in the engineering, especially when a door like that gets to be so large.
Spirals are three-phase only?
So our standard is three-phase, but we do and have numerous, like hundreds and hundreds of doors in 230-volt single phase, but not 110. So you can't use conventional 110 volt, but you can use 230 volt single phase. We even have some doors that are 208 volt. A lot of it depends on the size of the door and how many cycles it has. Typically 208 volt is not a really great power supply because they tend to sag.
Yeah.
They're relatively antiquated, or they're used for lighting circuits and all these other things. 230 is generally it's better for us because even if it sags, we're still in the 215 or 210 range. Whereas if 208 sags, it can drop down to 190 volt, 185, and then it's just building heat, right? The door may move, but you're just creating a lot of heat in the process of trying to push the door.
Would you rather have a 230 single phase, or would you rather have a 3-phase like converter on the door?
If I had a good 230 volt single phase, I would not recommend a 3-phase converter in it. So if it was like a private garage or whatever, in general, I would say no, you're good as long as the wire that's providing or supporting the door, providing the power to the door, is sufficiently sized where it doesn't
number 4, number
sag.
6 or something.
Generally, these doors, the thing that's always overlooked on these doors, it isn't so much how much current they draw, it's how much inrush. So a door like that will run at, a spiral door like that will run at, on 230 volt, will run right around, I'm going to say 7.5 to 8.5 amps. Right? You're like, well, a 20 amp circuit, no problem, right? Every time it starts, it could draw as much as 18 amps. So now if in our world, that door is expected to do that repeatedly. 200 or 300 times in the first part of the day.
You're heating up your supply line, and your
right. So now everything's getting hotter and hotter because the lower the voltage, the higher the current. Current is heat. So we're comfortable with 230 volt single phase. Again, some of the bigger doors, no. But in general, your typical garage or vehicular traffic door is going to be fine. Every controller that leaves this building is capable of being operated on any of the voltages that we offer. So the door that you're going to get, even if you said it was 460 volt and you find out you only have 230, that controller can be configured to operate on 230. If it is in single phase, there's probably nothing you need to do. Just hook up, instead of 463 phase, hook up 233 phase, door's going to run fine. If it's single phase, the only thing that we ask you to do is there's a jumper configuration that ensures that all 3 of the motor drive capacitors get the same amount of current to them. Because in high cycle applications, that's where the weakness comes in. The drive system relies on capacitors to store the energy that's required for the inrush. And if you think of it as tanks of material, it's tanks of electrical current, if you will. Every time that they're not able to be replenished quickly, they just get weaker and weaker. We do work with the government, we do work with federal buildings and prisons and hospitals and fire stations and you name it, we're there. And one of the great things about the Spiral for our business has been its visibility in the marketplace. Once we entered into that market with car dealerships, it really took us from having a product that was primarily behind the scenes, not visible to the public, to a door that the public was using. And in many cases, at the car dealership, some of the people that are using the doors are decision makers, kind of like yourself. You see it and you go, man, where that would be cool? And it 100%. Kind of goes from there, whether it's a condo association that you might be on the board of directors for, saying, hey, we want to solve something with our parking garage. Or you're in a multi-use facility where you're like, hey, I gotta tell me more about this door because I think I have an application for it. And it's really, I don't want to call it organic growth, but it's advertising itself.
Well, that's part of my argument for being here and putting these in my facility and convincing the leadership team to, hey, let me do this.
Right.
Most of the people, a large percentage of people watching this are decision makers. And just because we're united around the car and the home garage, you know, those are the same people that own factories and, you know,
Right.
plants and dealerships and all the other types of things. Or in your personal garage, you know, part of almost everything in my garage is something that is made for some other industry. The pressure washer we're using, the lights we're using, the cabinets we're using, the tools we have are generally for some sort of professional application. Why not? I love that. It's not a door. This is a machine.
Right. It is,
You know?
for sure, more machine.
It's much,
than door.
much more sophisticated than just a door.
Correct.
I don't think I'm ever going to call it don't call it a door.
Right. It's a
I like
machine.
that. Well, thank you,
It
sir,
is.
for the hospitality.
for
and really digging
coming
deep
in.
into this. If anybody has any inquiries of Rytec, hit me up and I'll connect you with the right people. If you also, like I said, if you haven't seen the main tour, make sure to go check that out. But thanks for all the information, and we'll see you guys on the next deep dive. Actually, next Rytec videos are going to be when we're installing at my place.
Excellent.
I'm super excited. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely.